Yeah, we back. Now, today we're going to be touching on the topic that a lot of people have been telling me to speak my mind on, and it's African Stream being banned from social media. Now, if you're not familiar with African Stream is a digital platform, or was a digital platform, that provided content and information focused on African history, African culture, current affairs, geopolitics, etc. You could kind of categorize them as a Pan-African channel because they did not simply focus on one group or one region of the planet, but it focused on the entirety of the global black family in terms of providing news and updates and information. And it was definitely a channel that I definitely kept up with. It provided a lot of content for my channel as well. So, shout out to African Stream. Shout out to the good brothers at African Stream. I believe the CEO of a company is a brother from Kenya. So shout out to that brother. He under attack right now by the State Department and her allies, but it's all good. But anyways, man, I'm going to jump into this footage from Anthony Blinken speaking on it, and then I'm going to come back with my commentary. Let's go.
RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a Pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists.
Now, as you can see, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken holding a conference where he is accusing the good brothers over at African Stream of being agents for the Russians. Now, in all my time that I've been following African Stream, I've never got any inkling or any idea that they might have been in the pocket of the Russians. I never got that impression from them. What I've seen is content that educates young black people, uplifts young black people, content that champions, black history, black unity, the importance of knowing who you are as a black man or a black woman. African Stream, from what I can tell, is a platform that was built by a young black man from Kenya, built his operation from the ground up. And I got love and respect for that, brother, because I don't got the largest channel, not yet, but I built my channel from the ground up too, from 0 subscribers. Now we just hit 14,000. So, I'm not an agent of the Russians. Nobody paying me. Nobody's, in my back pocket sending me money behind the scenes. Nobody's controlling my operation behind the scenes. And from what I can tell, Anthony Blinken simply threw out a baseless accusation saying that these folks are working for the Russians without providing a shred of evidence. And to me, that's the most insulting thing, because to minimize a black man's hard work to simply, he's in the pocket of the Russians, as if you're going to build a massive platform with a massive worldwide audience by simply being an agent of the Russians, right? Not by actually delivering solid content, right? That actually resonates with the people, that people care about, that people want to see, that people enjoy, that captures the hearts and minds of the youth, right? No, we're going to minimize the black man's hard work to simply, he's an agent of the Russians, right? He didn't create this from the ground up through his own ingenuity, through his own hard work, through his own work ethic. No, he's in the pocket of the Russians. Ha, man, goddamn. But one thing that stuck out to me was the fact that Anthony Blinken actually mentioned the words Pan-Africanism, right? Pan-Africanism. That lets me know that our ideology is seen as the true threat to the power structure. And one thing I loved about African Stream is how they would tie in all of our struggles together, right? Like on Monday, they would talk about, they would do a video about Haiti. And then on Tuesday, they talk about what's happening in Mali and Burkina Faso. And then, on Wednesday, they talk about what's happening in the United States, right? And then on Thursday, they talk about what's happening, in Kenya with the riots in Kenya. And then on Friday, they talk about what's happening in the Congo. And then on Saturday, they do a historical video talking about, how France tried to sabotage Guinea back in 1958. They had some really solid content, man. Shout out to the team at African Stream. They definitely, provided a lot of content for me, right? And then on Sunday, they talk about how the U.S. military is trying to infiltrate, Africa and, U.S. foreign policy and things like that. They provided a lot of solid information, man. And like I said, when you have an independent platform, like I said, that is unifying our people, right? Not trying to divide our people and chop our people up and, do this tribal bullshit. Like I said, our ideology is the true threat. The rest of y'all boys with your little tribal, little ideology trying to break itself up into little pieces, Anthony Blinken is not worried about y'all. Y'all harmless. Y'all some little cockroaches. Y'all gonna get stepped on, right? But the black men trying to unify themselves, trying to come together, trying to coalesce our forces, we are seen as the true threat. The rest of y'all boys is some harmless cockroaches. Now, anyway, back to the topic. My fault. Back to the topic, you feel me? Now, back to African Stream, man. Essentially, from somebody that's been watching the platform for a very long time, I don't get any idea or any sentiment of Russian propaganda. What I get is solidarity amongst black people across the world. That is the message they've been trying to promote. That's the message that I get from African Stream, right? Solidarity amongst our nations, amongst our people, standing together against the legacies of colonialism and exploitation. That is what they're about, from what I can tell, right? And this kind of ideology, as we can tell by Anthony Blinken holding a press conference and banning them off all platforms, I believe they're still on Twitter, but they've been demonetized. As we can see, this ideology and this type of information and propaganda is seen as a threat to the existing power structure, so much so that they've had to take direct action and call them out by name in front of the entire world. Now, why would the U.S. State Department attack African Stream directly? Now, if you ask my opinion, I believe it's due to the fact that African Stream would routinely call out U.S. foreign policy, right? Especially U.S. military presence on the continent. I've also seen them make videos going against Israel. And I believe those two things might have put them on the radar. And simply calling them Russian agents is simply just, like I said, they've been calling everybody a Russian agent for the past century, man. You could go back to the 1920s. They was talking about, this guy is a Russian agent. These folks is Russian agents, right? Take a look up on the screen. You got old articles from 1930. Take a look up on the screen. The world Negro Rising is said to be the Soviet aim, right? The propaganda being conducted on an extensive scale in America and in Africa, right? Like they said that, the black man rising up in the United States and on the continent is because, it's because of the Russians, right? They said this back in 1930. They said this shit back in 1930, bro. Man, goddamn. It's not because the black man wants to be sovereign and independent. It's not because the black man wants to operate in the world with dignity and respect. No, it's because of the Russians. The black man is rising up because of the Russians. And it's the same thing, man. Oh, man, the Russians is behind African Stream. The Russians is putting out this Pan-African, unifying content, preaching solidarity amongst the blacks. It's the Russians. God damn, man. Y'all boys still running with the old script from 1930. Golly. But I'm going to be honest, right? I'm going to be honest. I don't blame the United States for protecting her interests. I don't blame the United States for trying to control the flow of information. Like I said, there's different levels of warfare, right? There's the physical warfare, guns and cannons and, bombs blowing up and warplanes and things like that. And then you have diplomatic warfare. And then you have propaganda warfare, right? Where you try to control the narrative and control the minds of the people and control the flow of information. We've seen this play out across the globe, and it's not unique to the United States. In fact, I can't even be a hypocrite because months back, remember I did videos talking about how, take a look up on the screen, how Mali, suspended the French media, right? Take a look up on the screen. Mali, back in 2022, suspended the French broadcasters, France 24 and RFI, right? Those two media channels, France 24 and RFI, those are the government-owned, the state-owned broadcasters of the French government, right? Take a look up on the screen. You remember a few months ago, Burkina Faso suspended Voice of America and BBC, right? The British Broadcasting Company, right? Because they were putting out some false propaganda talking about Burkina Faso was genociding their own citizens. So they suspended those broadcasters for putting out false information, right? Take a look up on the screen. Burkina Faso suspended the French news outlet Jeune Afrique for trying to discredit the army. So, and like I said, take a look up on the screen. RFI and France 24 condemned the suspension of their broadcast in Niger. So Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they also did something similar where they banned the Western media for trying to put out false propaganda. So like I said, this is simply another engagement in the propaganda war, right? Like I said, we at war, man. We at war, black man. In case you didn't know, black man, you are at war, right? You are at war. Just because somebody don't got a gun in your face does not mean you are not at war. And when it comes to this situation, in my opinion, the United States, just like any other nation, understands the importance of controlling the narrative, right? Especially when it comes to their interests abroad, whether it's their economic interests, their multinational corporations, their military presence, their military bases, their political influence on the ground, controlling the flow of information. All of this comes into play when it comes to maintaining and consolidating your power and your influence. When you control the narrative, when you control the flow of information, you control how people think. Whether it's about foreign policy, the legitimacy of certain governments, the role that Western nations play in Africa, all of this comes into play. So when you have a platform like African Stream, it's going to be seen as a threat because it challenges the dominant narrative. It disrupts the flow of information, and it offers an alternative perspective that resonates with black folks across the world, right? That's the thing. It's one thing to just be, a random motherfucker in your basement shouting to the sky. But when you are amassing hundreds of thousands and millions of followers and subscribers and views and money on top of that, right? And you're generating money that allows you to reinvest into your platform and grow it even larger. That's when you become seen as a threat, right? Now, like I showed you before in that article from the New York Times back in 1930, they tag anybody who goes against the dominant narrative, the dominant world order, as an agent for the Russians, right? They did the same thing with, Mali, Burkina Faso, with Niger. They said, oh man, they moving away from France. Oh, they agents of the Russians. They working with the Russians. They in the pocket of the Russians, right? It's the same exact thing. But one thing I loved about African Stream was they actually sent their own independent journalists down to those countries and spoke to the citizens on the ground, right? So while the Western media was trying to discredit those brothers down in the Sahel, talking about, oh my God, these are dictators, are genociding their own people, they're banning our media, they're going against freedom of speech, right? They sent their journalists down there, and the citizens was like, man, we love our leaders. We love Ibrahim Traore. We love Assimi Goïta. We love President Chiani. Like, we love our leaders. You know what I mean? So it contradicted the dominant narrative they were trying to promote. So when you have a platform like that is countering the Western media, and it has a lot of influence, and it's growing rapidly, right? It's only been around 2 years, already got millions and millions and millions of people worldwide watching the channel. Yes, you're going to be seen as a threat to the dominant power structure. And they could just simply tag you as a Russian agent, and they're going to ban you from all their platforms. And one advantage that they have is that a lot of these social media platforms are based in the United States, right? The Googles and the YouTubes and the Twitters and the Instagrams, things like that. They're all based in the United States. These are US-based companies, so they can weaponize that fact against these platforms and not give them access to promote their content. And that, to me, simply reinforces the fact that we need to establish our own independent platforms outside of the established mediums of communication. But for those of us that study history, we understand that this is common practice. Like I showed you the New York Times article from 1930, but this even goes beyond 1930. They was doing this, back in the 1820s, back in the 1810s. I would say the earliest example of this goes back to back in the 1810s, over 200 years ago, when King Henry Christophe, the King of Haiti, was in power, right? Go to my playlist section for those of y'all that watch them amazing videos I put out, them amazing playlists I put out, right? Reading the books that came out 200 years ago, right? When Christophe was in power, Christophe's government produced amazing books that I've read on my channel, right? My favorite book being The Colonial System Unveiled, which exposed the brutality, the barbarity, and the subhuman savagery that the French inflicted on the Haitians during the colonial period, during the days of slavery. These books, these pamphlets provided first-hand accounts from those who had lived under the tyranny of the Europeans, under the tyranny of the French, and it shed light on the inhumane atrocities of the colonial system. But instead of acknowledging these truths, what did the Europeans do during that time? Just like today, they went on the offensive. Christophe's books, Christophe's literature was banned throughout the colonies and in all European nations. If you are caught with any books coming from the Haitian government during that time in your possession, you would be arrested. And in fact, if you had listened to me read that biography on Christophe's life, there was a story about this white man from England who arrived in Jamaica, and he was caught with a copy of one of Christophe's books, and he was arrested for possessing seditious and inflammatory content, right? Simply for carrying a book that came from the Haitian government 200 years ago. That was a crime. That was a crime, bruh. Now, of course, in the modern day, we can read these books freely. I read them on my channel. But back in the day, bro, you couldn't be walking around with a book that came from Christophe's government. Are you crazy, bro? Even if he was a white man, I'm telling you, they didn't even want white men reading those books. But that goes to show, man, this attack on the black men who use our voices, use our influence to counter the dominant narrative, it didn't just start happening today. It even happened during the days of Marcus Garvey, man. Marcus Garvey, another influential, powerful black man, just like Christophe, right? He had his own independent printing presses just like Christoph, and he used those printing presses to put out his newspaper. I forget what it was called, but Garvey had his own newspaper. He had his own books. He had his own pamphlets. He had his own brochures, right? And he weaponized his literature to uplift our people, to promote unity amongst our people, to encourage pride amongst our people, right? His newspapers, they were banned, just like Christoph. They were banned in the colonies for the same exact reason, because they were seen as inflammatory and seditious material, right? Just like Christoph, man. He wasn't violent or inflammatory. He was empowering our people. He was about reclaiming our dignity, our identity, our self-determination. But for whatever reason, our enemies seen that as a threat to their interests, right? Throughout history, they've been doing the same exact thing, exhibiting the same exact behavior, trying to silence black men who are influential and had the audacity to tell the truth. And to me, the biggest threat was the fact that if you are an influential black man, right? If you're just a regular black man, you know, sitting on your front porch, just talking shit, drinking a beer, you know, Anthony Blinken don't give a fuck about you. Nigga, talk your shit. You know, say whatever you want. But when you have influence, when you can galvanize the people, that is when you are seen as a threat, right? And Christoph and Marcus Garvey was the earliest examples of that, right? Christoph wasn't a regular black man. Christoph was one of the wealthiest and the most powerful black men of his time, right? He was a king, right? His voice carried weight across the entire black world. Everybody knew who Christoph was. Everybody knew who was that black man who had 10 warships docked in the harbor and who had an army and held a citadel on top of the mountain. Everybody knew who Christoph was. Everybody knew who Marcus Garvey was. Everybody knew who was that fat, rich black man who had millions of followers across the country and who had thousands of people working in his companies. And in response to these men having massive influence during their time, they attacked their literature. They banned their publications. They branded them as dangerous and inflammatory. So when you see platforms like African Stream, you know, coming under attack, we got to remember, man, this is nothing new, man. This is part of a long history of our enemies attempting to control the narrative by silencing our voices, man. That's all it is, man. That's all it is, man. Our forefathers went through it, so why do we think we're so special that we're not going to suffer the same fate, right? If our forefathers went through it, then we're going to go through the same exact thing. But anyways, man, I'm not going to let this video be too long, man. I'm going to play a video, you know, from the owner, the CEO of African Stream. Shout out to the good brother. And, you know, we out, man. We out. It's your boy Neferkari Salim. Play the video. We out.
Many people, even progressive people, think that before the Europeans set foot in Africa, there was nothing there. So we try to also explain the positive stories about Africa. Chirac, he said, without the business arrangements that we have with Africa, we would be a third world country. The biggest issue with that isn't that they enslaved Africans. Like I said, all people enslaved, is that they created a lie to justify the enslavement of Africans. Many people see Africa as a place where it had colonization, and after colonization, people had colonized minds. But that was yesterday's Africa. Make links with your African brothers and sisters, because we need you, you need them, and together we'll liberate this whole planet.
Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Back in my city, they loving me. Standing alone, I'm 100 deep. Enemy plotting is still in reach. They try to make sure that we underneath. Trying to make sure that we never make it. Coming for power, come get acquainted. Coming for everything that I wanted. Feeling like Drake, but I really wrote it. Feeling like Kendrick, I'm checking names. Gotta roll up while I go insane. Got so much stress, I been gated away. Stuffing these racks in this Louis case. One thing for certain, I'm about to check. Keep it 100 and nothing less. Stick with the family since day one. Had to stay down till my day come. Had to stay down, but I'm never patient. Hop on the mic and I'm motivated. Hop on the mic and I drive a classic. Haters can't see me, they copping glasses. Back in the studio making magic. Got a new tape and it's in production. Back on my business, I got a budget. Staying low key when I'm out in public. Feel like I'm 75. Know that your team be full of them traders, you know that can never be mine. I'm grabbing a thought when I drive. I'm back in my zone and we on. She said that she ready to come be my wife, yeah, hoping I don't do her wrong. I gave her my word and it's bond. I'm whipping the best like a lamb. I mean no chicken and lamb. Accustomed to call me the man. I never be up on the gram. I'm keeping that way undercover. She want me to tell her I love her. I told her I'm breaking the rules. I told her we making the news. Making it new, making it new.